Story 1. It is really overwhelming to be someone's only friend, confidant, and emotional support person. It takes a specific kind of person to appreciate that kind of codependency, but it is just not my style. However, they tend to be a lot more loyal and introspective, which I enjoy. Story 2. It was incredibly lonely. Even though we were both active participants in building a relationship, it often felt like he hated me for wanting to be with him. I suppose it depends on why someone is a loner. Do they prefer to keep their circle small and live their life? Or are they harboring so much self-hate that they cannot stand to have others around as a mirror for themselves? That relationship taught me a lot about loving and respecting myself, and I will not tolerate that kind of resentment again. Story 3. Depends on how you define loner. If you mean an introvert who is genuinely happiest by himself or with only a few very close people, that is one thing. That is fine. I was with someone like that for 5 years, and it was okay because he did not ever act possessive or controlling when I wanted to go out. I am not a loner. I am not a super extrovert either, but I do need a social life to be mentally healthy. Our breakup was amicable because he wanted to move to a more suburban area and I did not. If you mean someone who is actively hostile to other people, suspicious and paranoid, rude, and pretty much never leaves the house, then no. I need to at least be able to introduce my partner to my friends and family and expect them to have civil conversations. Story 4. The pros. You know he is not cheating on you. He does not prefer his friends over you. You never have to wonder if he is with someone else or bonding more with a friend or family member than with you. The cons. Being a loner is his natural state. That is how he is most comfortable. You do not get absorbed in his world. He is more comfortable being alone than being with you. Story 5. My husband is kind of a loner. When we were in university and the various places he has worked, he had friends, but none were very close, and he stopped speaking to them as soon as he moved on. We have been married 18 years and together for 22. So clearly there is not much wrong with him being a loner. The only thing I find slightly annoying is that he refuses to play any massively multiplayer online games with me because he does not like the social aspect of them. However, we play single-player games together all the time, so it is not a big deal. Story 6. It wasn't a bad relationship. It had many really great moments. The good. I never had to worry about infidelity. Everything was in us. Decisions were never made without first discussing them. I truly felt deeply loved. The bad. As many have said, being the sole source of reassurance and support can be exhausting. When you're someone's whole world, they start to think they know you better than you do. Self-growth in either party is less likely to happen because change is scary and can be mistaken for abandonment. The same applies to expanding into new ventures. I started taking classes for my dream career that required me to drive an hour and a half away twice a week, and it negatively impacted our relationship. The ugly. When the feeling that this isn't going to work begins to rise and inevitable distancing starts, they get desperate and express this in various extreme ways. For me, he almost had a panic attack first thing in the morning because he swore the wheels on my car were pointing in a different direction from when we went to bed. He believed I must have crawled out of bed, left the house, started the car, driven to another man's house, returned, re-entered the house, and crawled back into bed, all while he was asleep. For my cousin, her lonely ex-boyfriend found and read all her personal childhood diaries, weaponizing past life experiences against her to explain why she would want to break up their storybook relationship. Breaking up with a loner is really tough because it feels like you're abandoning something that depends on you like a pet or a child. In my case, I had to watch as he spiraled into deeper alcoholism and depression. We broke up 10 years ago, and he still hasn't dated anyone since, which really sucks. I'll end on a positive note. Given the choice between an extreme loner and an extreme social butterfly, I would take the loner. Story 7. Bad and ugly. Having to make all the decisions and take all the initiative regarding plans. Being his only social and emotional connection is exhausting. Good, no parties. Dates were activities I enjoyed, like movies and video games. A bad aspect related to this is that an occasional different kind of date would have been fun. Story 8. My partner was sweet, attentive, and charismatic, and had chosen a solitary life from a place of grief when he was very young. The good. He had his own hobbies and never got upset when I went out. He got excited for our time together, and his enthusiasm was infectious. He was very self-sufficient. There was never a moment when I felt like I needed to help him with or teach him basic life skills. I never worried he would forget something important, oversleep, or neglect self-care. The bad, he isolated himself to emotionally regulate, which was fine when he was the only one struggling. But when both of us were dealing with hardships, we never faced them together. His desire to handle things his own way meant I had to handle them alone. This left me feeling unsupported and made it harder to connect. It was like being ghosted anytime things got rough. The ugly, he talked about his ex constantly because she was basically his only friend when they were together. This did not bother me too much, but their relationship was toxic, and he still idealized it because it was all he had known for 5 years. Also, due to his unhealed trauma, he struggled with trust, having faith in the relationship, and expressing affection. He told me he would never say he loved me because he doesn't do that. Story 9. It was fine. It is always nice to date someone who brings you out of your shell a bit. I am also a bit of a loner, so one of the downsides is that if you are both this way, you will not push each other to change in that regard. We are both just content with staying in and being ourselves. Story 10. This is my husband. He chooses to be a loner. It is fine with me, we are both introverts. He just takes it to a whole new level. Good, no forced social interactions. We keep our peace. No visitors other than my family. Bad. Sometimes I need or want to meet up with my girlfriends and have girl talk. He often gets offended when I want to spend time with other people. Story 11. He basically made me his entire life instantly and needed constant attention. It was already difficult since I was a couple of weeks from turning 18 and he was 25. I guess it was less that he was a loner and more that no one wanted to spend time with him. I had to be available much more than I felt comfortable with, and a few hours passing without contact would make him start blowing up my phone and acting victimized while accusing me of cruelty. He was suspicious if I didn't contact him while going out with friends, to class, or to work. I was very young, so I lost my temper at him a few times before realizing it was too much. We only dated for about 3 months. Story 12. I dated and lived with a man who was a 28-year-old virgin with almost no friends. Looking back, I would not tolerate some of the things he said to me now. He made a comment about us having different body sizes. He was an average guy, so I laughed and said, "What, are you saying I am fat?" He said, "Well, yes." I cried and he said, "You are not that fat." I dated him for a year longer. I am not fat. He also yelled violently at me if I made a comment while he was gaming. I am very glad we are not together now. Story 13. I think the difficult part for me is that he doesn't spend time with men his age, 29 years old. But he always tells me, a 26-year-old woman, that he prefers to be alone because he knows that some people and society can turn their backs on you quickly. He suffered from a lot of bullying growing up, which is why he says he does not need any friends. That is why he much rather keep his inner circle small, his parents, sister, some family friends, and me. He is very happy that way and would not trade it for anything else. He even said that his dream bachelor party is to wake up by the beach alone, sipping a nice cup of coffee while reading a good book. On the contrary, he is very happy that I am more social because I am girly and love spending time with my girlfriends. He almost always encourages me to go out and have fun. However, we still have lots of fun together. We go to the movies, take afternoon walks, sit at our favorite spot, enjoy our favorite Starbucks drinks, and do many other things. The good thing is that we get to bond a lot more, and that works great for us. We have been together for about 12 years. Story 14. Not much of a loner, but my husband is an introvert with just a few friends. He was bullied in his previous school. I met him during college. He is fiercely loyal. He doesn't show off our relationship, but his actions scream loyalty to me. I'm more concerned about his safety when I'm not with him than worried about him having other girls. Some have tried to flirt with him, but he is assertive with his boundaries, which I find attractive. He spoils me a lot, even when I tell him not to because honestly he doesn't have to. I'm just happy hanging out with him, eating at sidewalk stalls, walking around the park, relaxing in my room or his house, or spending time with mutual friends. I introduced him to my friends since I'm the more sociable one, and I understand that he has a hard time mingling with people due to his past experiences. The catch is, he has a bad temper, but he has never raised a hand or shouted at me. Once, someone at school joked about matching me with another person. He pulled out a pair of scissors, chased the guy, and warned him never to do that again. At work, he prefers being alone so he can focus, and his bosses have praised him for that. Overall, I think introverts are great to be with as long as you understand why they prefer solitude. They have pros and cons like anyone else. They appreciate when you respect their need for a small circle or some alone time. They are great partners for highly independent people, as long as your interests align. My husband is a gamer, and I am a bookworm. Story 15. I found out there was a reason he had no friends. He latched onto one woman, making being with her his entire purpose. He added nothing to anything and got frustrated if the woman even hinted that she might need more from life than just his existence. Hanging out with friends? Cheating? Going to see family? That day he had something planned to do together. Guess you'll never know what that was now. Talking to new people? A dark shadow looming in the background, impatiently checking their watch. It was terribly isolating, but in the beginning it made one feel special. I'd like to say I dodged that bullet, but he simply missed. He broke up with me to be with his affair partner because I didn't have enough time for him. I was working 4 jobs so we could meet life goals we had made together. Crazy the weight that lifted. Happier now, I have a man who loves me and has friends, although he prefers me. Story 16. I would never date a man who did not have his own set of friends or a hobby again. I found myself feeling smothered and claustrophobic in our short relationship. I also felt guilty when I was out with my own friends. Felt like he was just waiting for my responses and to be home again. I felt like I was his hobby. In fact, it ended with me getting a protective order issued against him because he could not understand that as a friend. I ended the romantic relationship early. I needed space to live my life, which he did not know how to give. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Story 17. Loner here, and I am really curious to see how it would feel to date another loner because people with large social networks are very annoying. Story 18. I am a loner and one of the most social people I know. I had to learn to be extroverted for my work. I have not seen this mentioned, but reading Fenton Johnson's At the Center of All Beauty Lies Solitude was an incredible experience for me. Story 19. I'm also a loner due to my anxiety, but this person was on another level. He didn't leave the house because he had no job, and he made the basement, which is where I live, disgusting and smelly. He played video games all day, refused to clean up after himself, and when I finally ended things and kicked him out, I discovered mold on his side of the bed and something stuck to my dresser that I had to chisel off. Being a loner is okay, but being a misogynist who doesn't maintain hygiene is not. If you're reading this, which I know you are, you owe me my life back. I thrive because it bothers you. Forget you. Story 20. Male loner here with a different perspective. Still alone, but not for a lack of trying. However, the biggest issue with finding a partner nowadays is that it costs too much. I have a mortgage to pay plus bills and other expenses on top of that. With what little is left over, I spend on things I enjoy. If I seriously wanted to commit to dating, I would have to cut expenses and start budgeting weekly. This sounds more like complaining, which it probably is, but things are very expensive now and only getting worse. Story 21. Early on, it was fine and fun. Eventually, I realized that we had very different expectations about the amount of time spent out of the house with friends versus in the house together, just the two of us. She resented me for having more friends than her but never made any effort to make and keep friends, at least not any in real life. It became exhausting being her entire social circle, especially because when I tried to bring her out with my friends, she was standoffish and did not participate. Vacations were hard because she hated the outdoors. I am somewhat selfish and impulsive with social plans and became very frustrated with her not having her own friends. I think she needed to be with someone more introverted and a homebody like herself. Story 22. It was fine when we were together. I enjoyed his company and all that, but at one point his life circumstances changed. He wasn't working or in school, And he ended up spending all his time in his room, staring at screens and not trying to do anything to enjoy life. It made me feel sad and like our priorities just weren't aligned. When I knew the relationship had to end, I felt a lot of added stress about removing myself from his life because I was one of the only people he spoke to. I stayed friends with him for a few years after the breakup. I was never sure how much of that was because I wanted to be friends versus feeling an obligation since he didn't have any other friends. I enjoyed being friends, but part of me felt like I had to move on. We haven't spoken in over a year now, and I still feel guilty about it. Story 23. Varying experiences. There was a couple I found out were loners for good reason. Cohabitating was isolating, and I became a shadow of myself because they disliked everyone, including me and especially themselves. I discovered that I am codependent. The more they acted like they disliked me, the harder I tried to fix things and make them happy, which was never going to be possible. They resented my relationships with my friends and family, any hobbies I tried to maintain, and anything of mine that took up space. I am currently in a relationship with someone who could also be described as a loner, but he does have other friendships. He is not very socially interactive and rarely initiates plans, so I take full responsibility for that. We do not live together and are happy that way because we both value our personal spaces and differing lifestyles. He is not possessive and does not think he should be the center and focus of my world. He is just happy to be part of it. Story 24. The good. You do not have to share time or haggle holidays with other people. The bad. They are codependent on you to regulate their emotions and worldview, since they do not have anyone else to help them learn. The ugly. This reliance turns into resentment when you inevitably cannot fulfill their every need or become burnt out from trying. They are more likely to develop hurtful and spiteful mentalities because they do not rely on others to call them out. Eventually, even if they feel you are their greatest ally, they will still treat you like an enemy for not providing everything. Story 25. My ex is a wonderful, caring, and kind person whom I really cherish spending time with. They are introverted by nature and were in a period where they had only one other close friend, whom they did not see often. Their isolation meant I was their only confidant and support. Eventually, it became too much for me because I could see they were making no effort to change that, even after many emotional talks. They simply did not have the strength to work on their mental health beyond just surviving, and I did not have the capacity to be the only person supporting them through it. Story 26. Yes. For me, it meant learning that I was either going to my friends' weddings by myself or reluctantly dragging him along or not going at all. And forget having people over or being invited to other people's houses. He was visibly uncomfortable, no matter how much he insisted he was fine and happy to be there, so people didn't invite us back, and he had no interest in having people over. He became his only close relationship, so when things got tough with me, he didn't have other close friends to lean on for support. Now, after more than 20 years, we are divorcing, and he does not have a support network. I don't mind a loner personality, I'm a solid introvert, but before you commit, try to be on the same page about some of this. I learned that late. Story 27. As in most things, it depends on the loner. I have dated a few, married and divorced one, and am coming up on my 8th anniversary with another. I will note some common threads. The good. Generally very accepting of my interests and quirks, and tend to be good listeners. The bad. They either want me around 24/7 or get sick of my presence within a couple of hours. I prefer a more balanced approach to life. The ugly. Hygiene. Without social reinforcement, it seems they easily fall out of the habit of bathing, brushing their teeth, and so on. Story 28. I dated a loner and it didn't last long, less than a year. This guy did not have a circle of friends outside his family, which is okay in some cases, but he also had a toxic personality compounded by his lack of external relationships and a mom who latched onto her oldest son because her husband was absent all the time. I was seen as a threat as soon as I entered the relationship. We were in our late 20s, and he still had joint bank accounts with his parents. There was something about the lack of independence and privacy that felt violating. At first, it was great because he spoiled me and showered me with gifts rather than engaging in real emotional relationship building. It felt like he was paying for me to stay and was almost transactional toward the end. What opened my eyes was the way he would talk about everyone around him. He was an introvert but always had negative and sometimes downright malicious opinions about others, even people who were nice to him. He was not a good person. I am the polar opposite, having a huge network of friends. When I threw a birthday party with over 30 people attending, he ruined the day by spiraling into depression, being hostile, and giving the silent treatment to my friends. He also blamed me for not giving him much attention that day. This attachment style freaked me out, and when I had a serious talk about the future of the relationship, he decided to buy a bunch of things I didn't ask for to make up for it. The breakup was insane. He latched on to one of my closest friends and their partner, who had a similar toxic personality, and pitted them against me by victimizing himself. He made them act like creditors, aggressively trying to repossess things he had bought for me because he was angry with me for initiating the breakup. Don't get me started about his mom. I don't think all loners are bad, but some are truly horrible people because they probably had parents who passed similar toxic traits down and lacked empathy due to their limited socialization and friendship building. Story 29. Codependent and difficult when you realize you have little in common and no shared life goals. Without friends, you become their entire social circle. This leaves very little room to feel like an individual. Story 30. Dated two loners. The first was a sociopath or psycho. Either way you label him, he was a horrible monster. A registered sex offender with a history of targeting teenage girls and women who looked young enough, and I fit the profile. He may not have killed my roommate, but he must have considered it more than once, judging by how defensive and panicked he got when the police and her family, who also had police officers, arrived. She was the only one in the household who called him out on his abuse every day. He exaggerated the "I'm misunderstood by society" act when we met. I was naive enough to believe him when he told me no one would want me anymore after he took my virginity and gave me herpes. The only good thing was that I was forced to become more independent to survive. Since then, I have become more jaded and untrusting to keep myself safe. I even had to cut off my own family because I understood why I got tangled up in that mess in the first place. The second one was overwhelming. He trapped himself in an emotionally abusive relationship and thought polyamory was his only way out, when all he needed to do was call emergency services when his partner threatened to kill themselves if he considered leaving. We dated for less than a month. He told me he trusted me as much as his grandparents, who were evidently the only two other people he trusted in the world. My only response was, "Shouldn't that be your primary partner?" There was a lot of, "I want to leave but can't, so you're clearly my side partner." But I cater to this person because I'd feel guilty if they hurt themselves. I had to tap out. I was undergoing intensive radiation to clear any remaining cancer cells after surgery, and the stress of dealing with him and his partner's constant meltdowns caused me to get an infection. We got along well. Lots of good conversation. We were both introverted, shared similar tastes in music, art, and genres, and we were both animal lovers. I just couldn't handle playing therapist to yet another person who clearly didn't want to help themselves. I wasn't going down with him because he refused to swim. Story 31. I dated a guy during my sophomore year of college who stayed home and smoked marijuana most of the time. We shared many similar interests, and he was always very kind to me. However, he never took me on a single date and we never went out. Most of the time I spent with him was in his room. The relationship was always doomed to fail for other reasons, but I think I would have had more fun if we had gone out and done things together. Story 32. There are a lot of social cues, pop culture references, and ways of thinking that were missing. It's very subtle but caused odd reactions to things. The reactions weren't outright wrong, but kind of confusing because I had never seen people react that way. It's interesting to see because, honestly, most people reflect the people they keep around them. You do things a certain way because someone else did it that way too. And he didn't? If he did, it was likely learned online. It was like a poorly trained artificial intelligence model, somewhat isolated. Story 33. He was a loner for a reason. The good wanted to spend a lot of time with me, was well-read, had some unique interests, very academically driven. The bad had his undivided attention on me to an uncomfortable degree. Later found out this started long before we dated and continues to some extent even now. nearly 10 years later. Thought he was above other people and had a very inflated ego. This extended to even celebrating birthdays or holidays, which he thought were childish. The ugly. He wanted my undivided attention and wanted me to be as isolated as he was. Made up lies about my friends and planted ideas in my head about being a burden to others to make it happen. Story 34. My partner needs at least 5 business days to have something planned. He also does not warm up to people easily or quickly. Takes him a minute. I am very friendly and talkative. Story 35. I married a loner because he had a rough upbringing, was neglected, and was conditioned to let people bully him. He was very good at choosing bad friends. He liked being alone because it meant no one treated him poorly. I helped him leave the toxic friend group early on. I was recovering from a divorce, and we both started over by building new friendships through work and hobbies. After 18 years together and many therapy sessions, we are both in a better place but remain introverts who prefer playing video games together rather than socializing with the wrong people. We love our children, host game nights, and are very selective about our friend groups. He is much more outgoing now and easier to talk to in group settings. Story 36. It can be really difficult. I love him deeply, but being the only person he essentially has any interest in being with or talking to can be very hard on me. Can feel overwhelming and all-consuming. No one person was ever meant to be everything to everyone. The saying, "it takes a village," is very true. My partner is in a position of authority and, as such, cannot be friends with many people because he ends up being taken advantage of and asked for favors that he cannot do because they are professionally unethical. His job is stressful, high pressure, and unrelenting. I am his soft place to land, the calming influence, the understanding one, his home. As I have moved into middle age and menopause has affected me, physical symptoms are treated with hormone replacement therapy. Mental symptoms are not helped by it. No advice, please, as there is literally nothing anyone can tell me that I do not already know about hormone replacement therapy and hormones. I am increasingly unable to bear his challenges along with my own. It is too much to get into, but suffice it to say that having to be everything for one person can be overwhelming for that person despite their best efforts and all the love in the world. Yes, it is on that person to wave the white flag and say, "Hey, I cannot handle all this alone." It is a lot to put on me, and I have done so, but the challenge remains. Around and around we go, with me increasingly unable to meet his needs for safety, security, softness, light, and all the warm and comforting things a spouse provides. I try so hard, but it is getting tougher to keep it all going on my own. Story 37. He stalked me for a year and a half after the relationship and died before he turned 40. His obituary read like they were burying a 12-year-old. Story 38. Initially, I thought it was nice because he seemed to be trying really hard to impress me and show me how into me he was. I realized in retrospect that was love bombing. Eventually, his insecurities caught up with him, and he started putting me down and making me feel bad about myself quite often. He would insist it was just jokes and that I was being too sensitive, but it didn't stop. I stayed much longer than I should have because every time I tried to end it, he would cry uncontrollably, and I would just want him to stop. Eventually, he started pulling away on his own and said that I was too good for him. He always knew it wouldn't last because nothing good ever happens to him. I think he wanted me to chase after him and insist that he did deserve me and he deserved love. But I took the opportunity to cut ties. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.